We're going to have to extend it. Why don't you get ready while, because we have another discussion item, so
All right.
let's extend.
So move to extend the meeting by 15 minutes.
Support.
Okay, now we have to have a roll call.
Roll call.
Where did,
We're moving to extend to 10:15, not 15 minutes from now.
Yeah, 15
right?
past the 10 o'clock,
Right.
15 minutes past 10.
15 minutes past 10, yeah. All right, Hussein Berry?
Yes.
Fadwa Hamoud, yes. Mary Lane
What did-
is taking a break. Roxanne McDonald? Dr. Mead? Mary Petlichka?
yes,
And James Thorpe?
Yes.
Okay.
all right. First budget review, 2018, 2019.
2 minutes, go.
I may be good, but not that good.
That's why I went over.
We did have the budget discussion also at the Finance Committee today. We went into much greater depth than I will today. This will be a much broader discussion. As you know, the first screen here is the calendar, so we're now just starting the process also for next year's budget as we kind of continue through this year. So our starting step is to look at where we're at right now. So we take a snapshot in the end of December and saying this is our current budget because we know some of the key aspects of taxes, our student count, our state aid. Even though they constantly change the state aid, we knew at least by the end of December where it was at. So this just started the calendar, so you have it for your review later as we kind of go through the calendar. And just remember, we look at all the funds. Just to kind of give you a picture, we have the general fund on the left-hand side, which is our main operating fund. We have the special revenue funds, which are special funds that have their own revenue source, the debt funds, and the capital project funds. So we have different pots of money. Each has their different rules and regulations. But we normally just focus on the general fund mainly because that's where our operation and the majority of our budget is at. One of the things that we are a big aspect of our revenue is our actual student counts. We estimated 135 students for our growth for this year for 18-19, and we actually came in 139 students down, or so roughly 140 students down from what we projected. So that created roughly about a 275 difference in what we budgeted. So carrying that out financially, that's roughly about a $2.4 million loss in revenue from what we projected. So that is something that we had to kind of work on for this current 18-19 school year. In addition to that, we had state aid categorical that also went down. The state doesn't give us all our money in our pupil. They give us categoricals to offset different costs for us, and retirement is a big one. That one dropped about $2.2 million. So you can see as part of we look at this year's budget, 18-19, there's roughly about a $4.6 million deficit in our operating budget, more than what we expected.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to actually impact this school year because we want to kind of hold the program harmless this year because we're halfway through. And we're going to try to absorb that this year in the budgetary items outside of that area and then look at next year to bring the budget back in line. So that's the philosophy that we discussed at the cabinet level. So what we're doing is we have a couple of one-time revenues that came in this year. Last year, as we were closing out our books, we found that the county of Wayne did an error on our taxes and didn't report the correct numbers to the state of Michigan. We worked with the county and the state and got that figured out, but that didn't get finished or figured out until September, October timeframe. So the audit purposes, though, anything after 60 days after the end of June 30th, we can't go back and record receivable or payable. There's that timeline that after 60 days, they don't allow us to make adjustments. Since we received it after that, we were entitled to that money. So this year, the money comes through on the 18-19 school year. But that's a one-time revenue of roughly about $1 million we're going to get in taxes that we should have claimed last year, but we weren't allowed to, so we claim it this year. So it helps us this year, but it's only a one-time revenue source. In addition, Wayne Risa offered us an additional roughly a little over $1 million for Act 18 funds. And the Act 18 funds is for special education, and we don't get fully reimbursed for our transportation for special ed, and they have an excess in their fund balance in the Act 18 fund, so they gave us a one-time allocation of roughly another $1 million. So that still leaves us, quite a bit short from the 4.6 that we talked about earlier. So some of the things we're going to do to kind of bring that back down in line, we actually collect enhancement funds in the year, and we budget it next year to be spent. But we're going to kind of move forward roughly about $500,000 from the enhancement fund to kind of get us through for this year. In addition to the attendance incentive, in the prior years, we've done a 50-50 split. Half of it was paid from the general fund, the other half from the enhancement fund. So this year, we're going to move it all to the enhancement fund out of the current year allocation that we have for this year. Community education and community services, they do building rentals and classes for community ed. That money's been building up over years, and we're gonna actually be working on the Forston football field this summer. So we're actually gonna take some of that building rental money that we kept in there and move to the general fund to help offset that program. In addition, we've been setting aside roughly about $3.1 million to capital project funds for building projects. Prime example of that is the Dearborn High classroom addition. We're going to reduce that from 3.1 down to 1.5 or 1.6. So we save roughly about 1.5 million. So we're doing these large scale adjustments to kind of make sure the instructional program doesn't get impacted this year. And so that'll kind of keep us close to even for this year, knowing that next year we're going to have to account for the actually deficit that we're incurring this year. So we'll be doing that as part of the process as we go through the budgetary process for the next 5 months. So the next screens are just kind of the total numbers. I won't have to go through all that, but if you look in the far left-hand column, the general fund, that's roughly about 11 to 12% fund balance that we have for this year. That's just a breakdown. Remember when we talked about the general fund for our purposes, it includes the general fund, enhancement fund, and the athletic fund. That makes up our general fund. This is our special revenue fund, so you can see where we have our funded projects, which are Title I, our flow through, Title II, all that's in the funded projects. The food service fund, if you look at where we originally adopted to where we are now, is much higher. In October, the district went to a free lunch and breakfast, so that's bringing additional revenue into the building. We did plan some capital improvements both at Maples and Lowry this summer. So normally we would have seen a reduction in the food service fund, but our revenues have increased because of the free and lunch program. More kids are participating in lunch, and we're getting money funded for that. So you probably will get a letter this year again saying that our fund balance is too high for food service. That's a law that's on the books, and basically don't want people growing that by offering a higher lunch price. But unfortunately, we're already at the middle level or the lowest level we can for lunch price. So we might get another letter, but knowing next year we'll get that down to where it needs to be in a reasonable level. And last one is the capital projects. You can see we have 3 funds. The 2014 bond fund will be finishing the final cost in that for this year, so that bond fund will be officially closed. And we have projects going in the building and site enhancement fund, and those were kind of covered at the building and site committee today. Last picture is just a show of when you look at a budget our size, you're sitting on the ground level looking at these trees, it gets pretty overwhelming that you can just see this big thing. But as you can see, there's individual trees, and that's how you got to break down a budget this size, just work at individual items, and eventually the whole forest comes to light. And that's it. That's the budget update. Any questions? I went through that quick. It wasn't 2 minutes, though.
Again, congratulations on your honor. Now
Thank
we
you.
know
We still got a lot of work to do, but
We do.
we'll
We
do
do.
that over the
Thank
next
you.
several months.
Thank you.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
We trust you. Yeah, take over, please.
Next, acknowledgment and correspondence.
I think we all have sitting at our table numerous pieces of correspondence. We all also, everybody got their own individual, it is from one class, of a thank you from the students at Whitmore Bowles.
Oh, I thought I was special. I thought I was the only one.
No, we got it divvied
not
up,
taking
so
that
we
away from
we
you.
all are sharing.
This one does say Mr. Berry, so
Well, it says,
thank you to the students from Whitney
so
Bowles.
yes, thank you to the students.
Next, board member, committee, and organization reports.
Okay, I know we had 3. Trustee Lane?
We had the Building and Site Committee, but we already had a PowerPoint on that. That was the first presentation, so I won't return and be
So
redundant.
that's all you
That's all
discussed?
taken care of, yes.
Okay,
Yes, thank you.
okay.
The finance committee met and went through the same presentation that Mr. Wall just went through with us.
Yay, 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 we're moving along. Okay, and trustee McDonald.
We had a policy committee meeting, and we talked about that we'll be voting on the graduation requirements and early graduation at next month's meeting. We had already discussed this information in December, but because it's been a couple months, we just wanted to
Refreshed.
recap, yeah. We also talked about policies. These policies needed updated because of legislation changes. And we discussed weapons policy that was previously voted on, but it's actually the same policy, it just falls into a different category. So like a policy might be about, or for students, for staff, it's the exact same policy, but we missed a category. So we had basically a discussion about the same category, or same policy in a different category. But it was identical, and that was about it.
Okay, thank you. Board member and superintendent commentary. Trustee Lane?
I'd just like to thank Ms. Charles and the Student Advisory Committee, Dr. Maleko and Dearborn High, for Fred Korematsu Day. Trustee McDonald and I attended, and it was a really great thing. The governor has just issued a proclamation recognizing Fred Korematsu, who sued the United States government with courage and lost his case during World War II, only to have it be vindicated 50 years later.
For Japanese internment.
Yes, the Japanese internment. And although I didn't realize until I was reminded at Korematsu Day that that's still settled law. So if there's any community that ought to recognize Fred Korematsu, it's this community. Korematsu said, if you have the feeling something is wrong, don't be afraid to speak up. So thank you, Dr. Maleko, the Student Advisory Committee, Dearborn High, and Ms. Charles for that.
It was a wonderful event.
Yeah.
Trustee Barry?
If you feel something's wrong, don't be afraid to speak up.
Yes.
Thank you. You just set me up.
Okay.
Yeah. You know what, I originally had this under request for information, but I'm just going to make some comments and give the administration maybe an opportunity to address this. I'd received a phone call from a highly effective teacher, and I know that because we all just got the reports. I didn't tell her I knew that you're highly effective, but she was complaining about some of the tactics that's being used towards the teachers. I see it probably through other employees too, but she was just representing the teachers. She feels like if she was to speak up, that she would face some of the things that the other of her colleagues faced. Either, get pushed out, transfer out, or retire early. And she says, it's upon you to do something about it. I'm like, whoa, time out. I'm trying to explain to her, I'm just one of 7. I hear your complaints, I feel your pain, but this is something that you have to work through with your union. And she had her own thoughts about that. So there's 3 different classifications, I'm gonna call them. The employees, for whatever reason, if they speak up, and again, this is perception, they perceive that they're being bullied, they end up transferring to a different district, or if they have the right time in, they retire. And I did, a couple months ago, hear from a teacher, a former teacher, that just said, okay, I'm not dealing with this, and left. The second classification, I'm gonna call it, is the obedient employee. Just stay quiet, mind your own business, and you'll be okay, just look the other way. The one I'm most concerned about, I'm concerned with all of them, but the one I'm most concerned about is the ones that transfer quietly. And just 2 days ago, one of them did reach out to me. She said, I saw A, B, C, I saw what happened to so-and-so, I said what happened here, and she decided to just transfer. Actually, she went to a district where she's making less money, but she feels it was the right thing for her. In 2014, we had employees come up to the podium and talk about, employee morale, employee bullying, what have you. And at that time, I asked for a survey. Hopefully it was anonymous, and actually we appropriated $35,000 for that survey. At the end of 2014, I was no longer on the board, but I understand that took a different turn. I'm not going to mention any of my colleagues, but some of my colleagues have showed some concern to this, letters that went out and how it made our teachers feel. We asked about questions about, exit surveys, what have you, and, we didn't find, what we were looking for there. We serve also another institution called Henry Ford College. And what I know about the employees there is they're not shy to speak their mind, and they come up to board meetings, and they talk to us, and they tell us, and they shoot us emails, and they feel that it's okay to do that. So I'm going to wait a couple months here, give an opportunity for the administration to deal with this. I don't know, maybe look into a survey, an anonymous survey, maybe a third party from outside the district. Look at this. It exists. It's real. The other day, again, Trustee Guido used to think, former Trustee Guido used to think that I used to make this up, but, people call me. People run into me, just like they run into you and run to Trustee Lane and everybody else. And they share their concerns with us. Here's one of our teachers, again, very good teacher, been serving the district for a long time, started talking to me about some things, and when I started answering, he looked around, like to see if anybody saw him talk to me, and he kind of ended this conversation and left. My main concern is we just saw some wonderful, that committee that just served on this dedication. Some retired people, served this district for a long time. The thing is, my main concern here, too, is that employees that have served this district 15-plus years, some of them close to 20 years, but just all of a sudden, just the last 2 or 3 years, all of a sudden, we're finding that maybe they shouldn't have been working for us, or we're finding some negative things about them. So something's there. And I feel like something's there, and like Trustee Lane just shared that, I feel like I have to speak. So I hope I delivered the message. It's something you can take a look at. If not, then, we'll revisit it maybe in April or what have you.
Just to help Dr. Maleko understand what you're requesting, then, are you basically requesting,
he
you
can
would like
come
to
up
see some kind of
on their own.
survey?
If
Is that
Dr.
what you're
Maleko
asking
feels
for?
it's a survey, because something's there. Our teachers feel like they're being bullied. They feel like they're being pushed around. Okay, they've talked to me. I know they've talked to at least 2 other people on this board.
So you're trying to find a way to gather more information,
If Dr. Maleko.
if at all possible, about
come
the
up with a
morale.
way about, the morale, improve
Okay.
morale.
I just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
There's no reason whatsoever for a teacher to be afraid to speak to a board member or fear to speak to the superintendent or her or his administrator, feeling that they're going to pay an ultimate price for it. There's no reason for that. Not anywhere in the world, especially our district, our great district.
I agree. I just want to make sure that we're clear about what direction he needs to be looking at.
And we can continue
Okay.
the discussion
Yeah.
off record too. so.
Okay.
And we do have something that was done, what was it, a year ago, the CPI on employees where we did survey them, so we can dig that, but we can look at that and see if we want to,
We surveyed them.
yeah, there were, CPI team,
People are
Mr.
afraid,
Mashur ran.
people are afraid to talk to us. People are afraid to
Yeah,
talk to
we
Amy Sure. People are afraid to talk to you. People are afraid to talk to board members because they feel like,
Well, just for me, I just want to put it on record right now that people are willing, feel free to talk to me. And I'm very open. I sometimes have teachers
And
that
you
come
are.
to me
And you
and,
are.
I have teachers sometimes that say, I actually respond to them, and the executives would know that, but I get lots of communication from teachers, from students. It's happening all the time, sometimes just on the snow days, sometimes on their opinion. And for me, I feel like the teachers, because of the amount of communication, and I actually have the data right in my email, that they feel very willing to come up to me. They come up to me in the schools, multiple today, and they'll share their concerns too. It happens all the time. It's not only, sometimes it's the positive, but other times it's, okay, here's an idea, here's a concern. So I just want everyone to be on record that feel free to come up to me, feel free to email
thank
me
you.
with concerns. And, we have processes that we follow. I will say the only thing is sometimes, which the board has spoken to, is that sometimes you know, with like, there's an issue at a building, but they come to me before going through the principal and that sort of thing, and that's the only thing is I try to get it back. Well, I might not be able to solve that because I'm not directly involved, like a student scheduling issue or other things. That happens frequently, but generally, they feel comfortable.
Okay,
you
we're
know.
gonna have to extend the meeting
Oh, sorry.
another 15
Put a
minutes.
motion on the table to extend our meeting 15 minutes.
All right, roll call vote. Trustee.
We need a second.
Support.
Support, okay.
Trustee Barry.
Yes.
Fadwa Hamud, yes. Mary Lane.
Yes.
Roxanne McDonald. Dr. Mead.
Yes.
President Petlicoff.
Yes.
James Thorpe.
Yes.
All right, let's go on.
Just one quick thing, I wanted to piggyback on that. Do we do exit interviews, and does the district and do the unions happen to do exit interviews? So if there is maybe some underlining,
Not an interview, but it's a survey, I believe. Can you
So,
speak?
Trustee Barry and Trustee McDonald, I don't know how long ago it was, but maybe sometime in the last year, Trustee Barry, you were here. Trustee Thorpe did have some questions about, like, movement among buildings and similar reasons why people leave. And so we gathered up all the data that we could from the exit surveys that we had, because not everyone takes the exit surveys. And then since then, I've made it a conscious effort within the department that, like, anytime someone resigns, retirements we don't ask, obviously they're retiring, but anytime someone resigns from the district, we make a point to find out why they resigned, and we add it to that, like, we added a column onto one of the many spreadsheets that we use. So that was since the last time. Do you remember when you had requested information?
The one thing, though, that we would probably still want to consider is you mentioned we don't ask in retirement. Well, sometimes people are retiring to something, but sometimes they're retiring from something. And I work with people all the time that they're tired of work and they want to retire. So if that's a situation, that's still something that we would want to know about.
Okay, yeah. Also, so that would be one source, because the exit interviews, people don't always complete. We did have a CPI committee that, I believe, CPI Continuous Process Improvement Committee that looked at employee morale about 3 years ago, and so we could look at that data as well. I will say that I have many teacher friends in the district, but one teacher that I have the utmost respect for expressed, you know, some of what you're saying to me, and so I was very concerned about what she was saying, and I asked her, you know, please give me examples of this, or let's talk about this some more. So we sat down and we spent quite a bit of time, and the conversation's not over, it will be ongoing, because it is important to us, and we do, I mean, employee morale is key to student success. So it is a topic that we will always be exploring. I just want to caution, so I haven't gotten, so what I asked from this teacher friend of mine is, okay, I can't speak to each individual one if I don't know what you're like who you're talking about or what context. Give me the context of what's happening. You know, there's hesitation to share that with me. You know, anything that's brought to us, we take with the utmost serious, we treat it as our utmost serious matter. We investigate to the best of our ability and get as much information as we can. The area that makes it difficult for us to control or to impact, not control, but to impact perception of things that happen in the district when it involves personnel is that no one will ever have the entire story because we can't share the entire story. And as a principal, I used to say this, and as an assistant principal, I learned it. As a principal, I would say it when I would talk to my assistant principal, or, you know, if you build relationships with enough people, when things are not, when you can't share the whole story, you hope that they trust your character to get through whatever's impacting their friend. So I guess that's what makes this so difficult for me, not just from this, what you're saying, Trustee Barry, but in general, we can never give the whole story, and that's the piece that's hard.
And I completely agree with you. It is so difficult. And this friend that you're talking to, he or she is very, very brave, to be honest with you, from what I'm hearing from, you know, other employees. And that's what I'm asking. If we can come up with a system where maybe it's an outside company that does this kind of work, comes back and tells us, you guys are great. Only 1% of your employees, thousands and thousands of them, feel this way. Or they might come back and say, you have some issues you need to get to. That would be positive, great feedback for you to deal with. Because
Absolutely. Trustee Barry, I want to ask you one more thing. Or
Yes.
I want to ask the whole board, of course, but in that data, if there was a survey like that from an outside company, what I would ask whoever conducted the survey to do would be to look at comparable data in other districts and in the teaching profession across the nation. Because we do know that the teaching profession's been under attack for years and years and years, which is why we have a teacher shortage. So I would just request that piece also, because when I talk to teachers all my years in education, when I talk to teachers in other districts, and all my teacher friends at my kid's birthday party, I looked around, it was like, seriously, 30 educators from all these different districts. And it was a very smart birthday party, but no. So I look around and I see all these educators, but they're all saying the same thing. So some of the morale that goes with teaching and goes with the teaching profession is a nationwide epidemic. So that would be the one piece that I would also want to explore further, in addition to what you're saying.
you're saying, I'm sorry, you're saying, which I agree with you, that, the teaching profession is under attack. And if in Dearborn, we can't do it right, I don't think anybody can do it right in the rest of the nation.
Thank you.
Because we are Dearborn. We're a special place to be in. If we can't, if our teachers don't feel respected by administrators, by board members, by, their community, their principal, whatever, if they don't feel that special love, then there's something wrong with what we're doing. That's all I'm saying. So let's get to it. And, like I said, I would love to see that, hey, you guys are doing some great work. That would be awesome. But if there are some things that we can learn from and grow,
Absolutely,
I would love to also see
always.
that too.
And Trustee Barry, I appreciate you saying that. If Dearborn can't do it right, then no one can. Thank you.
Well, I think what we can do, and just to, because I know we've been going back and forth, is we'll go back to that CPI team that did the survey. We'll go back and we'll have some discussion on how we can look at that and open it and make people feel like they're comfortable to come forward with information. And, one outlet they always have is with the unions, because the unions meet with us, and then they don't have to necessarily give their identity. They meet with me on a regular basis, so that would be one outlet I'd remind employees. But we'll definitely look at it. I would also mention too that, we had 98% approval of the contract from the union. That's been unheard of in the history from what I can remember, all the years I've been in the district. So that goes to the contentness of the employee as well. So we got to take that into consideration. But having said that, there may be some individuals that didn't vote and things like that. I get that. So we can look at it. We can come up with a plan and try to look at maybe through a survey or other things. But give us some time to look at it, and we'll come up with some recommendations on how we can get that.
I think we're still on commentary, correct?
Yeah.
I just wanna add
Although
one
that
quick
sounded more
thing.
like information, but
Okay. I just
agenda
wanna-
items.
These are my comments. If you're the professional, tell us, then.
Okay.
I went
yeah,
to Henry
commentary.
Ford the other night, I believe it was last Thursday or
For their
Friday.
STEM night?
For STEM night.
Yeah, Thursday.
What a great night, the kids were having a ball, and they did a good job, and it was just excitement and learning going on all over the place, and it was wonderful, so I just wanted to give them commendations for that.
Right. Right. Anybody else have any board commentary? Trustee Lane?
I would just note, March is reading month upcoming, and I know a lot of people will be reading. I am going to be gone for part of that time, so I regret that I'm not going to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Keep teasing us. Where are you going?
She's going to party.
Yeah.
Trustee Thor?
I just recalled that before our next board meeting, the Dearborn Education Foundation is having one of their major fundraisers, which is going to be the Mardi Gras fundraiser on Tuesday, March 5th. You're going to Mardi Gras?
Going to Mardi Gras, but not
No,
here.
yeah, she's going to the,
So there could be a request for
something with an
information as to
ocean
what
involved.
she did then. But if you're interested, please go online or go to any of the buildings and you can get tickets to it. It's a great fundraiser for the Education Foundation.
Anyone else have any commentaries? All right, next, please.
All right, request for information and/or future agenda items.
Trustee Thorpe?
Last spring, we made a decision as a district to move the students that used to be in the ACE program back into the high schools and expand the number of students that were going to be in that program. Now that we are through their first semester in that program, I'd like to start getting some information as to how are they doing back in the buildings? How are the students that would have been separated, how are the additional students doing? How is the whole program moving forward? Thanks.
Anybody else request? Okay, future meeting dates, Monday, February 18th, 2019, HFC meeting 7 PM in the Rosenau Boardroom at the Administrative Services and Conference Center, Henry Ford College. Monday, 11th, 2019, P12 Board of Education meeting at 7 PM at the Administrative Service Center in the Frank Franchi Boardroom. And Monday, March 18th, 2019, HFC meeting at 7 PM in the Rosenau Boardroom at the Administrative Services and Conference Center, Henry Ford College. I believe that is all.
Oh, we are adjourned.